Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Bomb. That's me, your griot, here to tell you the story. And what is the story? It's the same old story. It's a story of not love and glory, but basically stupidity and greed. Both are angst point of fear's ego, right? Or the ego of fear. However you want to slice it. But Donnie Chump, he's no hero. He's just a scammer. He's a flammer. He's a gaslighter. He's a but every other politician on the planet is just the same. Here's an interesting little thing I found on the old internet. The station's called Middle Nation, and the thing this guy's going to talk about is a perilous transition, instability, and flexibility in 2025.
Well, I've been saying for quite a while that the transition to the global south, the transition of the global economy to the south, is going to be bumpy. It's going to be a bumpy transition. This is a perilous moment in history. There's so many disruptive things happening at the same time, all happening at once, simultaneously, and everyone is sort of scrambling to come out on top when the dust settles. You know, when I talk about what appears to be the vision or the plan of the A national OCGFC and BRICS and the Gulf countries versus the old paradigm of the neocons, no one should imagine that that means that the conclusion is a foregone conclusion or that the outcome is a foregone conclusion. I think that the A national OCG.
Earlier today, I put out a YouTube, and I had Cliff High let him do his same thing I do, stream of consciousness, and he was talking about the same thing. If you go back and listen to this morning show with Cliff, and there were other things in there too, but he's in the beginning, and I really love Cliff. I love all the people I put on.
Against a European country in order to seize territory from them. Seize European territory. Well, that's nothing but colonization. What he's talking about with regards to Canada, that's nothing but colonization. The man is talking about occupying, colonizing, and pillaging other Western countries, the resources of other Western countries. He called the border between Canada and the U.S. an artificially drawn line. I mean, Putin didn't even say that about Ukraine. Meanwhile, the border with Mexico, well, that isn't artificial at all. It's just an artificial border between Canada and America. Greenland and Canada get to become American states. Meanwhile, Puerto Rico is called a floating island of garbage at a Trump campaign rally over the summer. So Puerto Rico is trash, and the Mexican border needs a wall, but the border with Canada is just an imaginary line. It doesn't really exist. Now, the obvious racism is just that. It's obvious. But if you think about it a little bit more deeply, there's a reason for drawing a demarcation line like this, what Trump is trying to do. The U.S. empire is looking at subjugating the northern hemisphere, and the southern hemisphere is no longer any of their business. It's out of their sphere of influence. In fact, the southern hemisphere is the ascendant hemisphere. I mean, did you notice how his press conference, how it began? What he did, what the real reason for the press conference was? He was talking about the UAE pumping in $20 billion of investment into the United States. I mean, imagine. We're already at this point. We're already at the point where an American president is bragging about successfully attracting foreign direct investment from the global south into America. I mean, this is usually the kind of thing that a president in the global south would be bragging about. You know, being able to attract foreign investment. But now you have the president of the United States, or the president-elect of the United States, being proud and bragging about the UAE opening up data centers in his country. Role reversal. It's actually really interesting to me. It's interesting to watch all of this play out, alhamdulillah, in our lifetime. We're seeing a major change. Basically, the neocons, the nationalistic OCGFC, are being placated. This is what Trump is doing. They're being redirected to feed their cannibalistic appetites on other Anglo-Saxons. I mean, this was the West's primary activity for centuries. Before they ever invaded our lands, they just cannibalized each other. That was the main pastime. So we're coming full circle. I mean, of course, the neocons need to maintain a fantasy of power. And I think that that's partly what's going on with Trump's outlandish suggestion. It's giving them something to dream about while they create nightmares for everyone else. I mean, the suggestion that the United States could just take Canada, take Greenland, it may sound absurd, but it actually reveals something far deeper than just the mere posturing of a braggart. This is in the imperial DNA of the Western power structure, a system that has thrived, has absolutely thrived on the subjugation of others' lands, others' resources, and other people for centuries. This isn't just about geography. This is about desperation on the part of the West, on the part of America. It's about a crumbling empire that's grasping at fantasies to try to reclaim relevance as its power slips away. To entertain the idea of annexing Canada or annexing Greenland or both in the 21st century is clinging to a mindset that belongs in the colonial past. It's obviously geopolitically absurd to try to do something like this today with all of the alliances and the sovereignties that are at play. But the point isn't whether this is feasible or not. It's that the very notion itself reflects an empire that is incapable of adapting to a world that is no longer defined by its dominance. The United States is not asserting strength here, it's telegraphing fear. This isn't a serious proposal. It's a tantrum dressed up as a strategy. It's the instinct of a predator whose fangs have fallen out, and they're lashing out in vain as his prey slips through its fingers. In my opinion, Trump is giving the neocons a fantasy of America, as a great giant imperial landmass like China or the former Soviet Union, a landmass of majority white people. That's important because as so-called minorities, or rather as members of the global majority who happen to live in America, as they are increasingly becoming the collective majority of that country, in other words, as white people are gradually becoming the largest minority in America, well, racists in America have a demographic problem, similar to the Zionists. But unlike the Zionists, if America starts annexing territory in the Northern Hemisphere, well, that's territory that has its own kind in it. They have their own kind there. Now, if the Zionists seize territory, well, it's not filled with Jews. In fact, they don't even have enough Jews in the world. There's not even enough Jews on earth to fill the territory that they want, or even the territory that they already have. But if America takes Canada, if America takes Greenland, well, then the white population of the new United States empire would be at least increased by a few percentage points, which matters to them, maybe more if Canada adopts a mass deportation policy like America. See, it's almost like they're trying to gather all their own kind together and either expel or refuse entry to the so-called racial and so-called ethnic demographic groups of the global majority who they never liked. It's actually something that the global majority should be happy about, to be honest. The global majority should be happy about that. You should be happy about the anti-immigration policies, frankly, because they're literally trying to keep you off of a sinking ship while they're telling everyone else who's stuck on board that ship that it was the weight that was making them sink, not the gaping hole in the side of the vessel. In other words, they're lying to their own people about what's really happening and why their ship is going down. But they're trying to keep you from jumping from the iceberg onto the Titanic, which is exactly what it is when anyone immigrates from the global south into America or into the West. You're just jumping from the iceberg to the Titanic. And they're trying to keep you off of it with their anti-immigration policies. Now, of course, this new Trumpian manifest destiny is nothing but a daydream. It doesn't really mean anything in reality. Trump is selling hallucinogens to the neocons. And of course, he's also just providing a distraction to the American people. This is one of the main things that politicians do in America. He's providing them a distraction that will appeal to their nationalistic ego and their nationalistic vanity. Anytime America talks about anything outside of America, all they're trying to do is distract their citizens from what's happening in their country, from the inequalities, from the economic collapse.
This is exactly what happened in Rome. For a good 200 years, Rome, the empire, expanded out into everybody around them, and was a country of exploitation, of taking the resources from the lands that they conquered, mostly in slaves. But everything else they could, they were growing food, whether they had minerals, whatever. So, or if they had really nice real estate that they could turn into a spa like Bath in England. So that was what Rome did for 300 years. And then they hit a spot where, that illusion of a democracy was going out the window with the bathwater and the baby because the legislature, right, the Senate had become all, you know, billionaire bros, right? There was nobody there who was looking out for the needs of the people. So they had to buy the people off, and that's where bread and circus came. And so they did that, and they kept, moving out and, being imperial and taking resources from conquered lands. And it got to a point where I was getting expensive. I mean, the reason why England lost the Revolutionary War is because it was too expensive to fight. They had the best army in the world. Basically, Washington lost every battle he ever did. I mean, he was like the Donald Trump of that period. He had all these resources and he expended them and lost. But he kept getting more backing by the population because it forced England to show its hand as a really nasty group of people. And so the people who were Anglophiles in America go, oh, I don't know if I want to, And when the average guy who just wanted to be left alone, started getting hassled by the redcoats, you know. And then, like I said, the reason why England walked away was because it was too expensive. And why they came back in 1812 was basically America was pushing England around with little boats. They had the biggest navy in the world. The sun never set on England's empire, and they were expanding to be even bigger. And they didn't want to mess with basically the Americans were being pirates, and so they came right over to where Washington is, came up the Potomac, and burnt DC to the ground, and got all the doddering old fathers. Said, okay, this is where it's going to be. You're going to be our bitches from here on in. We're going to leave you alone. You're going to, manifest destiny, all the everything around here, and make yourselves a rich bunch of dudes. But you are bitches. We have a special relationship. And when we need you, you're going to be there. And that was it, pretty much. Anyway, here we are, 13 minutes and 15 seconds. I like this guy. He's, my other, there are a lot of people I play for you. Clip High, I love him. And Peter, whatever his name is, he's really good. But this guy, he sees, Peter's he's a generalist that's very focused. And, 20 years of his career, he was being paid by a certain group of people, so that's his focus. And so his perspective is quite good, but you have to, this is his focus, you have to push it out to here. Then his what he's talking about is valuable. This guy, he's way outside the box, but he's
their
right.
country, from the inequalities, from the economic collapse, from the erosion of their rights. All of this is happening in their own neighborhoods. So let's look somewhere else. Let's try to make them look somewhere else. It's for the American people to try to keep them looking outwards while their own houses burn down. And I mean that literally. I mean, I don't think you could find, or I don't think you could imagine or come up with a better metaphor.
You're going to find that California, that all those houses were arsoned, that they were set on fire, right? And they were done very professionally, and I would say a good deal. There might have been a number of areas that were set ablaze by people on the ground, but what really kept that fire, and still is keeping that fire going, is what's being motivated by space, right? All our weather comes from space, right? And if you understand this, All you have to do is be able to just nudge it a little this way or a little that way, and you get some pretty big um, motifs. They're all going on about global warming, and we are heading into an ice age. Anybody who's living in the United States tonight is a little nippy. I'd add like two electric blankets and five eiderdowns on my little whatchamacallit, couch. But so I'll wear this little thing and gloves and a hat, and I'll be fine. But people who don't know how to take care of themselves, and the other side of the coin is every morning I'm ready to, I wake up dead, right? Some guy was asking me, where are you, so here, I'll show you. I found one of these things here, and this actually, I use my legs to get around. And it's like an exercise machine. So I'm exercising my calves, my knees, my ankles, and my feet without having to step on it. See, I'm walking totally on concrete, and my body never liked concrete, and everybody's different. So everyone, and then I also died in 2014. And when I came awake, I woke up on a gurney with the fentanyl in my arm, and I'm supposed to be gone because they're just about to push me into the operating room where they were going to crack open my chest, take 20 feet of my colon out, so I'd have to shit through a ileostomy bag and chop my legs off. Right? And as you can see, I still have my legs, right? And so I explain all this to this guy. He said, well, why are you in the wheelchair now? I said, well, because I pretty much wake up dead every morning. And, this extends my ability to be ambulatory. And what's that? And so the real issue of that guy, he's your average dude, right? And he has zero empathy, right? All he does is, he is one of the, he's not even a deacon, but he teaches a Bible study class, right? And all he can do, we get this book right here, which is quite good, right? It gives us, everything, you know, each thing we're going to study, right? He doesn't even read it. He reads it out loud to us, you know, and then and at certain points it's like, the third grade teacher, Johnny, read that section, and the person who can read but don't read out loud well, and when he said, Al, and put your hand up, I said, oh, I'll read it. So, I studied to be an actor, so I can read a script and I can read well and I can communicate what I read. And he didn't like that. And that I would then interpret, see, here's his listen and write, underlining things, putting stars, writing up there what it really means, and what's this question, and how should we look at that? And that's what God wanted us to do. Right? But the minister and the deacons and this guy, and they don't let the women do all the work in the church, but they can't be a minister and they can't be a deacon and they can't teach. They can teach girls and they can teach little kids, but they can't, be in the big room. So, and so they told me that I can't speak in church, right? So I don't. I walk in. I can talk to people before studies and before service, and I just come in and how you doing, John? Hey, how's your legs doing? And I kind of basically I have canes that I need to walk with, and so I kind of, and he sees that. He said, why does he say, oh, why are you in that chair? It's like, really? As long as you've known me for the last 10 years, have I been able to like play baseball or run, a race or barely and just because I'm in good spirits and I don't complain about anything, people go, well, you're not sick. And that's why our country is in the shape it's in. Right? And this guy is doing a great job of giving us a nice.
Or come up with a better metaphor for America today than what's happening in California right now. You got tens of billions of dollars worth of damage from those fires in California. Meanwhile, there's no water. The fire extinguishers aren't producing any water. Their firefighting equipment is all gone to Ukraine. Whole neighborhoods in Los Angeles, subhanAllah, whole neighborhoods in Los Angeles look like Gaza today. How about that? And you have a mayor who doesn't even know that a URL or that the term URL isn't the same thing as a website. This is America. So yes, you pretend that you're going to transform into this huge, expansive geographic empire from the Arctic all the way down to the renamed Gulf of America, just to divert from the reality of your reduction as a world empire. You talk big, even though you can't even fill your own boots anymore. And that's why you talk big, because you're shrinking. Now, no, that doesn't mean that it's all empty talk. It's not completely empty. As I say, the A National GFC have a plan. Is what I've been talking about for 3 years. Relations are going to become increasingly hostile between the U.S. and Canada, between the U.S. and Europe, between the U.S. and the rest of the Northern Hemisphere. Everyone is being misled, in my opinion, with regards to thinking that Trump wants to have problems with China, that he's trying to make problems with China, or that he's confrontation with China. I don't think that's accurate at all. They're going to be making problems for the West. America's going to be making problems for the West, which essentially just delivers the global South to China and to BRICS. MAGA isn't about helping the American people any more than a corporate restructuring is about helping the workers. That's how you can probably conceptualize what's happening in America. America is downsizing. Oh, well, just like with a company, when they downsize, they're telling everyone that they're just consolidating and they're just streamlining and that everything they're doing is just going to make everything better than it ever was.
Yep, just Josie it all. Yep. We're going to take out all those pesky regulations and distractions to commerce, like the EPA and the banking, facilities, and we're going to take all restrictions off of investment in Wall Street, and yeah,
they're going to make the company stronger than it ever was, and so on. Meanwhile, the richest of the rich in America are perched with their golden parachutes that will float them off into the global South, while your cities crash and burn. This is the death rattle of a system in crisis. Western colonial capitalism, in its current form, is unsustainable. That's obvious. The U.S. economy has been hollowed out by financialization, by deindustrialization, and it can no longer stand on its own. That's a fact. The system runs on blood. The system runs on turmoil. Canada and Greenland and Europe have had a good run in terms of being able to orbit the United States without ever having gotten sucked into the vortex of that vampiric system. But that good run is over, and they're going to get sucked in. The same system that they used to pillage the global South is turning its sights around. You've heard about those prisons where the inmates rebel and take over the facility. Well, it's kind of like that, I think. The world today is kind of like that. All of your former prisoners, the colonized countries, the so-called developing countries, your former prisoners have taken over the jail. And now the rifleman in the gun tower is turning his rifle around because he can see which way the wind is blowing. He can see who's actually in charge now. So now you've got prison guards who are stripping off their uniforms to try to put on the prison blues because your uniform just makes you a target. I'm talking about the West now. Oh, the tables are turning. I mean, look at this UAE investment that no one seems to want to talk about. I mean, think about that. The UAE investment was literally the only actual substantive thing, the only actual thing of substance that Donald Trump even talked about at that press conference the other day. And no one's even talking about it. No one is even mentioning that that's actually the reason for the thing. Everyone's talking about Canada, everyone's talking about Greenland, Panama Canal, and so forth. No one even noticed the fact that Mr. America First is bragging about $20 billion in foreign direct investment that's going to go to operate exactly the same way in America that Western investment always operated in our countries. That's exactly what they're doing. I mean, literally. The UAE is doing the exact same thing that the West has always done to us, but no one can see it and no one's talking about it. You have to understand that the way foreign investment works is like a syringe. They tell you that it's injecting you with medicine, but what they actually do is stick that needle in you to suck your blood. So you think that they're injecting, but they're actually extracting. Because look, this deal that he announced, they're going to open data centers in the U.S. Okay. Well, aside from how much power and leverage that gives the UAE potentially over American data, which is massive, but let's not even talk about that. There's too many things to say really about that. That's not really even my area. But just consider the fact that data centers notoriously consume a huge amount of energy, a huge amount of electricity. This is why Trump was rambling for most of his press conference. He was rambling on and on and on about drilling, drill baby drill, about coal, and he was even attacking windmills and all sorts of things, which is just too obviously quixotic to even mention. Okay, they use a massive amount of energy, these data centers. They use a massive amount of energy, a massive amount of electricity. That's going to be American energy. That's going to be American electricity, powered either by natural gas, by oil, or by coal, or what have you. Apparently not by windmills. So let's just say that they open 10 data centers. The amount of energy that they will consume to run those data centers is going to be roughly equivalent to the total of U.S. natural gas exports. Imagine. This investment is only partially about the actual data centers themselves. This investment is about sapping America's energy resources. It's an investment into sabotaging America's newfound status as an energy exporter. And that's if they just open 10. If they just open 10 data centers, but they're putting in the $20 billion investment in. For $20 billion, you could open hundreds of data centers, or 10 data centers with the capacity of hundreds. Either way, that's $20 billion that can potentially significantly undermine America's energy self-sufficiency. And more importantly, for the Khalij, for the Gulf, undermine America's competitiveness in the international markets as an energy exporter. This is a very important issue for the UAE. It's a very important issue for the Gulf. Trump knows this, of course, because the national OCGFC knows this. Trump is very close to the Gulf states and always has been. I mean, you can almost say, and this is what I've been saying in the chat, Trump is a Khaliji president. I mean, he's so Khaliji that he wants to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America just so America can have a Khalij. What we're witnessing is the West turning on itself. The empire is cannibalizing its allies. They're cannibalizing their own environments now, and they're cannibalizing their own people just to stay alive. This isn't strength. This is desperation. This is a dying system that's clawing at anything to try to keep from falling. I'm talking about the neocons, not the national OCGFC. I'm talking about the nationalistic owners and controllers of capital. But the stronger and the richer faction of the OCGFC, the national OCGFC, whom your own system created, that faction of elites are not tied to your domestic prosperity. They're not tied to your domestic economy anymore. And they're not tied to any nation. They are a nation unto themselves, like I keep saying. And they actively want to see your system devour itself because they want to leave the rest of the world to them. They want America out of it. So what does that mean for us, for Muslims, and for the global South? Well, it means that we have to prepare. We have to be serious. We have to build. Because as the empire collapses, we have an opportunity to create something that we haven't seen in the world for hundreds of years. This isn't a call to resist. It's a call to lead, to show the world that there is a different way. There is a just way. There's a way that's rooted in harmony and cohesion and collective sovereignty. And I think that's what we're seeing develop. So let's not be distracted by the empire's desperate fantasies. We have to focus on the work ahead.
This guy is really righteous. He's saying it like it is. And he's Muslim. And he is, again, one thing that I'm constantly going on, and everyone who wants to know what I know and talks to me and calls me up and be nice. I mean, it's good old days. They used to pay me pretty good for this, but I guess I made a decision of, living in not focusing on the Benjamins, but focusing on my service to God's unconditional love. So this guy, he's going on, and what he's talking about, which he's not really talking about, is that new way, which is the old way. It's like the Who. Don't get fooled again. We're having a revolution and we're throwing this guy out. We're putting a new guy in, but the new guy is just like the old guy, right? So, and that was, basically the Persian Empire. The thing about the Persian Empire was that it went from the far south all the way across Africa, all across, up through North Africa into Spain, and kept going and was at the door of Switzerland in 1490s, right? And that's when they had their last big crusade to kick those guys back, right? And all they could kick them back to was Turkey, right? And that's why the Vatican became as because up until that time there were two Catholic churches, the one in Italy and the one up there in Turkey, and the one that got to Turkey and then went into Switzerland. That's when the bankers in Switzerland said, "Okay, that's enough," and they pushed them back. And then World War One was to push them back some more, right? And then World War One, end of World War One, kind of ended the Persian Empire, but it really didn't. I mean, Turkey became a singular European angular point of the Persian Empire, and they're down there in the south, India, Pakistan, that neck of the woods was another point of the Persian Empire, and up, in above Iran and Iran was the other. So this is just a continuation of the same story. This is nothing new. This guy really pegs the whole thing about that Donald Trump is going, he's not going after Russia. He's not going after China. He wants to go after, um, you know, everybody who isn't white. So anyway, but the people who are really in charge, who put Donnie in place and put all the other chuckleheads there, basically, what they want is a one world order. That they want every one of these power players just to wear themselves out, kill maybe 3/4 of the world's present population, get it down to 2 billion or 1.4 billion, and then have a federation. And why do you think? I mean, that's why Gene Roddenberry was placed there at Desilu to bring that vision out. Nothing just happens, It really, nothing just happens.
Desperate fantasies. We have to focus on the work ahead. We have to understand what's actually happening because there are tremendous risks. I mean, BRICS is working with the A National OCGFC, and that's perilous in and of itself. They are predatory. They're just the same as neocons in terms of being predators. They want to worm their way into dominance in the global south. So we have to negotiate that relationship very carefully. This is going to require cool heads, calm calculation, patience, and long-term planning. So you can't. You have to try to not get caught up in the flash bombs that they drop sporadically. Western politicians. You need to pay close attention to what's actually going on. Because yes, we are in a negotiation, all of us, literally all of us. We're all in a negotiation with power, continuously, constantly, nonstop. You and I are constantly defining the terms of our relationship with power. We are constantly letting them know what they can and cannot get away with. We're letting them know what we require from them. We're letting them know.
And the problem is, folks like us in America and Europe, we have been so drank the Kool-Aid that we have no idea what's going on. We believe what mainline media tells us, and then we believe what our insulated, siloed, social media tells us. We don't read a book. We don't open our minds to a guy like this. The average person doesn't find this guy. Now, I'm here. I have access to the internet, and I'm kind of stuck here. So I've been, normally I spend 6 hours a week on the internet. Now I've been probably spending at least 6 hours a day on the internet. But I've done a lot of research, and it's been good. And I've done these shows, and I got at least 2,000 shows out there, more, right? So go look at them, right? I've been doing this for 7 years, give or take. 2017 is when I started, right? So here it is, 2005, so 2 more years. So yeah, it's maybe 8 years I've been doing this. Anyway, but it doesn't matter, because I'm here to serve love's co-creation, to in every day, in every way, take the peace of the earth and make it stronger. And I don't have to be an A-lister or rock star or on every, go viral or any of that, because I shamanically drop my little stories into the World Wide Web, and the vibration goes out to everyone. They have no idea what it is or what's that feeling. Boy, I got a little scratch over here. I'm serving God's love. That's it. God takes care of me. I don't worry about anything. I just got to say, God, I have no idea. You take hold of the wheel, and I'm just along for a ride. I'm here to serve, right? So that's how it's working. It's doing quite nicely. I really enjoy the connection with the cadre and folks who get a hold of me at the dudewake42 at Gmail, dudewake42 at Gmail. I enjoy that. I have over 100 people that I've connected with over the internet, and made a difference in their life. And that's what makes me happy, when I can be that little nudge to push someone in the right direction where they can make the decision to be the decider. I'm not their decider. I'm just their nudge. So, but this guy, he is quite. I like this guy.
We require from them. We're letting them know continuously what we will and will not accept. So we really can't afford to let them distract us. The West is turning on itself. So we have to ensure that we are ready to rise when the West falls.
You heard it.
In the aftermath of an auto accident, whether you've been involved in an accident with a motorcycle, car, or big.
Here's this guy, John where's Mersheim, right? He's interesting, but he is very, very his own little silo.
So Donald Trump will be inaugurated on the 20th of January, Monday, as the 47th President of the United States. It was a deeply and hotly contested election in which Trump won fair and square. It's a big mandate. It's a second term. And usually they say for U.S. presidents, the second term is all about history and legacy and what they leave behind, how they will be remembered by history. So how will Trump want to be remembered in his second term? Joining us now is someone who has kept a close eye on U.S. and international politics. Professor John Mearsheimer is with the Department of Politics at the University of Chicago. Thank you very much, Professor, for speaking with us, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, and thanks for having me on the show.
So let's start with Trump. Early next week, he will be sworn into office as the 47th President of the United States. What do you think is going to be the top 2 or 3 agenda items for him in the second term?
Well, it's very clear that in terms of foreign policy, the Ukraine issue is front and center. The Iran issue is front and center. And the whole question of a Gaza ceasefire is front and center. So he has these 3 big foreign policy issues that he has to deal with very quickly. And the fact he's going to have great difficulty solving any one of those 3 problems. So they'll be haunting him for a long time. And then on the...
See, he's talking about stuff that almost he's just talking about the surface, right? Not the depth. Why is the relationship with Iran? Why the Gaza Strip? Why Ukraine and Russia? Go deeper into why. Not just look at those, look at the shiny bauble, look at that.
Domestic front, it seems to me that the main issue he is concerned about is moving illegal immigrants out of the country and
people of color. He wants a white America. Last time he was saying, why do we got all these shithole people here?
I don't think he's going to be able to do that. But if he tries to do that, that will be a Herculean task that will be equally as difficult as those three foreign policy problems he faces.
Let's talk about the foreign policy problems. The Israel.
Well, I mean, both of the foreign policy problems, three of them, all he has to do is get out of the way. Take the aircraft carriers and the naval groups and take them out of the Mideast. Just take it away, right? Stop giving Israel any money or bombs. Say, see you later, buddy. And then let everybody work it out. See what happens. Right? Same with Russia and Ukraine. Tell NATO, listen, we don't really have a stick in a fight here. So you guys, you can support Ukraine or not. Ukraine. As a boy growing up in Harlem, Second Avenue was every 3 blocks was a different European group, and the Russians and the Ukrainians and you name it, all of the Balkans, everybody was there, right? Polish, you name it. And what was interesting was the one group you just did not mess with the Ukrainians. The Russians were like, oh, we're big bads, we're OGs, blah, blah, blah. I got a gun. No. Ukrainians would kill you and then kill everyone in your family, your dog, and then kill everyone that they knew. I mean, you just did not mess with those people. Now, they were the nicest people, if everything was cordial and nice, they were great. They were very cultured, I love those guys, right? But my grandma said, you're hanging out with the wrong guys. That's my grandma, they're really nice. She said, oh, yes, they're nice, but you won't be able to control the situation. You have to back out of that relationship. Not in a mean way. Don't give them anything to go, wow, we don't like this guy. Just not be there. And because they didn't come looking for me to go play stickball, it's just I would kind of bump into them and we go have tea at Vilsaca's or something like that. So it's like the real interesting thing is just let those people take care of their own business instead of us trying to get over, right? And that's all we do. And so, but we can't do it anymore. And that's why Donnie is going after Canada and, the Gulf of America and Greenland and, Panama Canal. Panama Canal, the original contract was with, I think it was Chile. Panama was part of Chile, right? And then but there were like a little, peninsula sticking out over there. Very easily and there's a mountain range there, very easily to cut it off. And so we paid some people in Panama to have a revolution, to be their own thing. And then we came in and backed them. And we made a contract with them. And we built the Panama Canal. The French first started it. They did the first, right? And Donnie said 58,000 people. Well, those most were French. The Americans lost maybe 300 or 400. I mean, by the time we got there, we realized that the mosquito was the vector. And so we drained every pond, we sprayed everything. We gave the real thing that protects you from getting the mosquito-borne diseases are netting around your bed. That's number one, because you're asleep. You can't go squat. You're just open for business. And if you put real good netting around you, you're not going to get mosquito-borne diseases. So anyway, we lost maybe 300 people, right? And so, but we, at the very beginning, we had a contract where we were going to control, own, have everything in the Panama Canal and in the zone and Panama, but only for 99 years, because it was called in perpetuity, meant in Latin forever, but somewhere around 1895 or some between that and 1920, um, they said, okay, in perpetuity means 99 years. So 1976 was the 99 years, right? So Jimmy Carter went in there and made a really good deal, basically saying, okay, instead of us just handing it over to you, we're going to have these things. And they have kept, we have not, China doesn't run it, they do. We have first, if we need it, we get the first access to go through there, right? It was built in the turn of the century, between the 1800s and the 1920s, and so it doesn't, like, you can't take a super carrier through there. You can't take large container ships through there. You can't, you can bring 1920s size shipping through there. That's it. So that's the total of Donald Trump. He just wants to flex his muscles, just like what's his name? You know, Mr. Ronald Reagan went into Grenada, right? So and George H. went into Iraq, and so anyway, there's where we are. So there's one of us there. So, anybody wants to say anything? Come on, join the conversation. So we are in this very interesting period, because in the since August, the stars and the sun have been doing really crazy stuff, and our geomagnetic field is weakening, and we could experience, what happens. The geomagnetic field weakens, and that's the thing that controls or lends to it. One of the major things it does, it protects us from the radiation of the sun, and UV, but it also has a dynamic to why we have gravity. And what happens when that loosens, that magnetic field is a thing that encompasses the whole planet. And people don't realize that all the land we're on, the planet is made out of water. The event that happened to Asheville and up here in Tennessee, it was like an ocean worth of water in 5 hours. It didn't rain. It came up out of the ground, right? And I met a guy who's, his discipline is what's going on in water tables. Hydrologist, I guess is what they call him. And he said that all the water flows under where we are is totally changed. And that's why the lake is getting polluted, because it's squeezing all the crud out into the lake. And so that lake is going to be, all the lakes around here are going to be deadly, not just disgusting or not just, smell bad, but they used to be silver blue, and up around me I had found a bass and trout fishing in North America, but now they're all dying. And within 2 years, so all the rich people are building their houses around. They're all going to die, and it's again one of these little metaphors of what that guy was talking about. Sunlight, sensitive Bob, greetings and tidings. Yeah. So bottom line is, so that guy's talking about the southern, and they're getting prepared. And China is also, because they realize they're running out of people. So they're not just going to have bricks. They're going to hook up with the southern tribes. And that's going to be the new, financial, because that's where all the resources are in Africa and in the Mid East and all over that neck of the woods. It's not here anymore. And as he was discussing about, the Arabs building gigantic data centers here, they're just doing that to get cheap electricity, right? So it's quite interesting. And what's really interesting is that when you look at inflation, inflation isn't Adam Smith. Inflation is when you print more money. The more money you print, that's when you get inflation, right? Just look at Germany, look at any of the country, look at the countries in Africa that Europeans have taken advantage of them. So they need $1 trillion note to buy a roll of toilet paper. It's coming to you soon. That whole thing that was we experienced in the collapse of the supply chain due to the virus was just really a heads up of what it's going to be like. Good luck. So the only way to really get over this is to get rid of our egos and be our brother's keeper, right? And if we were to step deeply into that, we're all called, oh, we're a Christian nation. Well, I'd love to see, Muslims pray 5 times a day, right? And they don't just like, oh, hey, God, how you doing? No, they kind of prostrate them. They roll out their prayer rug, they lie on it and face Mecca and, put their head down and seriously pray to God 5 times. I'd like to see some Christians do that, right? And their whole religion is based on hospitality. If you see somebody who needs something, you have to, your religion says you have to go and take care of that person. That's what a good Samaritan is, right? So, what do you think? Sunlight, what do you think? Did you catch what that brother was telling us about the collapse of the North? The neocon world, right? And that we are totally deluded, right? We're going to go take over Canada. Why are we going to take over Canada? Well, they're all these white people. They're like our brothers, We can get rid of all the colored people, get them out of here, And they're going to, just like Germany had camps and it was for the Jews. No, then it was first it was the gypsies and the communists, and then the Jews, and then anybody who they didn't like. And so they cut down their population, like at least the Jews, that was like 6 million they got rid of, but they got rid of other millions of other people. And those were all people that could have been working, could have been growing food, could have been doing all the above, right? So, and why do you think the AEU or who are those? There's Maker 113. Is it real or is it Memorex? I remember going to Japan in the 90s, right? And I met this guy. I was a courier, right? I did that for about a year and a half. And that was way fun because I flew all over the friggin' world. I was bonded. I just kind of slid through everybody's place. And I went to Japan 3 different times. And I met this one, industrialist. And he lived in Hokkaido. And, it's a long airplane ride. And we had a really long, beautiful talk about everything. And he said, boy, you're an interesting guy. And so we get there and he goes, so what are you going to do? Get on the airplane, go back home? I said, no, I got a few days. I had 5 days, right? And then I actually had 10 days. And then I had to get myself home after 10. But it's 11 days, and I had a visa that was good for at least 30 days. And the visa, if I was there past 30 days, they would get upset. But the airplane ride back first class, 5 days. 10th day, it's, stagecoach. And after that, you had to get yourself home on your own nickel. And if you did it more than twice, you got debonded, right? So, anyway, I had this great thing with the conversation with him. We got off the airplane, so what are you going to do? I said, I'm just going to, you guys got great trains. I'm going to go. Maybe I was thinking going to Hokkaido. I did a little homework on that. He goes, that's my hometown. So he goes, listen, I have 1 day of business, I have to go do some business things. There's this really nice hotel. I have a suite in. It has many, it's not a hotel room, it's a suite, so it's got a couple bedrooms, so you can stay there. And at night we'll go out, and you need to take a nap, you can, but we'll go out and party, right? So we did. And if you ever want to really party, go out with a Japanese businessman. So we did, right? We had a great old time. And then the next day we had a beautiful meal in the morning, and then he had two meetings, which he took me to. He actually went and got me a nice suit, and he took me to the barber because he was going to the barber, and really clipped me up good. And I went in there as his, European economic consultant, and I didn't say anything. I just was like. So anyway, he took me. We then went to. He thought it was great. He was laughing the whole way, and we went down to the train station, and he went off to do something, and I had half an hour, and there was this beautiful flower shop that made bonsai, and it was like super duper bonsai, right? And I had about $500 in 5 Benjamins, and the guy, I went in there and I found this beautiful uh, flowering tree. It was about that tall, and it had a beautiful thing. And I said, I'd go for that one. And he put in this beautiful wooden box that it was like a Pajenko. I mean, it was no, it just kind of, and then put a nice ribbon around it. And I, said how much, and he said, how many yen? And I was like, and I gave him 3 Benjamins, and I said, that's it. That's all I got. I had 2 more, but he goes, good enough. And so I basically walked out of there, and that guy was like, he saw me in there, and I walked out. He said, what'd you get? And I said, I got your wife a present, which I knew presents were it, right? I knew his wife really, this guy was so self-assured of himself. I knew his wife ran everything because he didn't have to worry about anything. His wife was running everything, right? So we get on that bullet train and zing from Tokyo to Hokkaido. We get there, car's waiting for us. We go home. He introduces his wife is waiting, and we have a very nice little tea there, and we're talking, and she speaks perfect English. And I said, I have a gift for you. I came and put it there, and she knew, she didn't have to hit it with a hammer or anything. And it was this beautiful little bonsai tree that was flowering, and she just was like, so like, you're the dude, So we had, and so she knew he was from Tokyo, she was from Aikido, she came from a very well-to-do family, very connected. So for 4 days, we went out and saw all the sacred places, all the museums that tourists can't go to. And we went to a Japanese bath, which was like, that's unheard of, a gauging going there. But these people had so much pull. I was their guest, so, and I didn't embarrass them. And it was one of my higher experiences. What is the moral of the story? I mean, the bottom line. What's the bottom? I live in reality. It's all about the bottom line. Nothing else matters. The bottom line. Bottom line is there is no bottom line. That's the bottom line. There is no bottom line. It's how you spend the moment. That's the only thing you got. You don't have the past. You don't have the future. You just have the moment. There is no bottom line. How does that, Swami? What do you think? Namaste, Jane. Jane, I love the little blue thing and the red thing. It looks like something almost sexual. rubber toys, rubber sex animals there. Something into that, and that's the bottom line. At least for Swami, the bottom line is the rubber sex animals. Right, Swami? Am I right or am I right? Right. So that whole thing, I could have, when I was on that airplane, and we weren't quite sitting next to each other, but there was bonsai, you know. And he saw what I was reading, and I was reading Thomas Merton. He said, "You're reading Thomas Merton?" I said, "Yeah." Then I told him that he was like my uncle. He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, the reason he became Catholic is that he was Methodist or Protestant or something. And my mother used to have this kind of ballroom, and all the rich guys who had no money but who had stuff, who had a bottom line, would come in their tuxedos and they'd have these things, and the girls would do what girls and guys do. And Thomas Merton was in love with my mother. And he said, "I want to date you." And she goes, "Oh, Tommy, I can't date you. You're Methodist. I'm Catholic. You go and become Catholic." So he did. He went and, to the neighborhood Catholic church. He found an interesting thing. He started reading literature, and he was a poet, basically. And he fell in love with Christ, right? And he got that. I keep talking about the frequency. He bing, right? So when I was a little kid, he used to, and my mom's second cousin was John Steinbeck. And so they used to show up for Thanksgiving dinners, right? Christmas, well, one Christmas dinner, but 3 Thanksgiving dinners, and a few other evenings. And that was my mom and dad. That was part of their best part of them. They really, my mom was a party girl, and she could put on a great dinner party. And my dad would use it as a thing to do business. He's very Japanese in that way, and so was my mom. So, but she was, Irish German, and my dad was just, you know, Italian, And his father was Northern Italian, Roman, and his mom came from the islands off of Sicily. So she was basic Celtic. She had blonde hair and white alabaster skin and these green eyes. So, yeah, Tetros. Yep. So that's the bottom line. The bottom line is how you live your life in the moment, not the past. You don't worry about the shit you did in the past. If you can resurrect understanding of what you're doing through the experience of the past, well, that's good. But that's the best you can do with the past. If you use it as a jail cell of fear and anxiety, and that's what John Birmingham does. He lives in the past. And he's scared of the future, so he never lives in the moment, and he gets close to that when he does his videos, but they're all about the angst of the past and the fear of the future, right? He's never really in the moment. If you are depressed, you're living in the past. Yep. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. Right. If you're at peace, you're living in the present. Latsu. Yep. Exactly. Thanks for the quote. And I love Latsu, right? The art of war. War is the worst thing you can do. You should never go to war. Do everything you can do to not go violent. But if you are pushed into it, the thing is, no hold barred. Right? Just go. And that's why the Japanese, at the beginning, they won everything because they held nothing back. But that admiral, Yamamoto, when he's with the emperor, and they were all say, "Well, we have to go after the Americans. They're like stepping on us and getting in our way." And he goes, "No, no, no, no. You don't, because Latsu, Yamamoto had gone to school in America, and he also was a naval attaché in Washington. So he knew Americans. He said, listen, Americans are, just, but once you piss them off, once you get them mad at you, then they're just going to keep coming at you until they take you out. It doesn't matter, and they have so much stuff. Their means of production, their resources are so vast compared to what we have. We're a little island. Yeah, we can take a lot of stuff right off the bat, but after that, we're toast. So the emperor ordered him to do it. So he said, "Okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to go full Monty." See, sunlight. What did you say? Message restricted. Add, hide, no. Put user in timeout, no. Report, no. Why can't I even see it? Such is life, I guess. Stop it. You won't let me do anything. No, forget about it. I'll know not to push that button again. Anyway, it's just taking up too much room. Well, I'm just going to, the least of these things, it's a channel activity. What is channel activity? I have no idea. Go to channel, pin message, report, remove, pause in timeout, hide user and channel, add as mediator. No. I made that mistake before. I guess go to channel. Let's see what that does. Okay. Okay. I want sunlight, sooner light, or whatever light. Listen, buddy. If you can't put the message there that we can all appreciate, then look at Swami. He says naughty things, but he does it in a way that's funny, right? So you got to anybody and the rest of you guys, because the last time that happened, I hit the wrong button and I put the moron into the person who could control the channel. It's like no, and I have no idea what I just did, but everything went back to normal. So okay, so and if you do that again, message retracted. I'm going to put you in timeout or like put you in the trash can. If you need to be more creative. You express yourself in a way that we can all appreciate it. Okay. So we were at 5 and 3 ran away and now there's only 2. And we've been going for an hour and 8 minutes. So I guess, let's see, what time is it? Time to go to bed? Yeah, maybe. So, Shinaru light. I don't know even what the heck that means. But anyway, what does that mean? Explain to us what Shinaru, SHINEURLIGHT. What does that mean? I have no idea. Come on. See, like Swami Foktan, Nanda, right? I like that, In the best possible taste, right? Being the best I did is spell, whatever that is. Anyway, so anyway, that's my basic story is to live in the moment, um, be your brother's keeper, um, don't have expectations, don't covet. The Ten Commandments are pretty good. Shine your light. Yes. Okay. Oh, I see. Shine your light. Okay. Very good. I like that. Shine your light. Okay. See? You explained it. Very good. You get a gold star. But things are going to get very weird, gang. One thing that's going to happen is right now the geomagnetic forces are really going whack. And if you know how to go on the NOAA website, they have a satellite up there that looks at all that stuff. And also, they have one that is the Solar Max that looks at the sun. Between what's happening to our geomagnetic force and the sun and what's going on with the moon, you can tell that it's not just a local situation, that our whole solar system, maybe even our galaxy, is experiencing something, right? And I think it has a lot to do with time and space and dimensional reality, right? And if you, I don't know, have you guys been feeling any weirder than normal? Have you been experiencing any physicalities that are not the normal thing, right? What are your dreams like? If you want to talk about anything deeper that you don't want to share with the cadre or the rest of the World Wide Web, get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And so, anyway, one of the things that's potentially is that there's going to be some serious earthquakes in North America, in the West Coast, the New Madras Fault, which is kind of near me. It's like further near the Ozarks, but it would affect us, and that could be more than an earthquake. That could be a volcano. There are no real. I mean, there are volcanoes there, but they're not like what. It hasn't exploded for 1,000 years, so people don't even know it's a volcano. They think it's just a hill, right? And so the New Mattress thing is that. So I've reached out to some people I know who know a lot more about this. I'm just saying, my little spidey sense is saying this. And there also could be some serious. But there's a gigantic fault out in the Atlantic, out near Greenland. From Greenland to the Gulf of America, and this is mountain range, right? And if there was an earthquake behind the mountain range, it would just push that whole mountain range over, and that thud would give a tsunami that would wipe everything out from Ireland all the way to South America on the Atlantic side, kill maybe 200 or 300 million people. I might be just high enough that my toes would get wet, but pretty much everybody down below me, and they're in Asheville, gone. Boone maybe gone, but not. They too are just high enough. But Lenore, I have a lot of friends in Lenore, and everybody along all the way over, like I said, all the way over, right? As the Appalachian and the Blue Ridge go down, that whole area of Tennessee wiped out, all the way up to Canada, Texas gone, all the way up to Seattle, Alaska. It might even spill over to that. And if that thing out there in the Atlantic goes, the New Madras would also go, and so would earthquakes in California. So it'd be very, 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 very. And would take out, America would be back to where we were in the 1840s, basically. All our technology would be totally toast. And people who have dug, big underground facilities. There are some serious underground facilities that the rich have put down there. Well, that flood came down there, baby. So that's about it. That could then things are. It's gonna. It's like the dominoes have started to fall. Right. The event that happened here in Tennessee, the fires in California, and a number of other environmental and natural disasters that no one's really talking about because they're in other countries, right? They're not on our little window. Let's see. Hey all, hey fish, shine your light. Nice to know you, friend. Yep. Yes, shine your light. SL, you are definitely a cheeky monkey. So anyway, has anyone been feeling any of this, right? And or have you become more psychically conscious, like your dreams? What have your dreams been like? Have you been visited by any extraterrestrials in your dreams or in your real life? Has anybody shown up that's like, whoa, baby? And have you had any of those experiences earlier in your life? Just because they're underground don't make them any safer. That's right. It actually makes them. There's a lot of things that can happen to you underground, like Nash. If you've ever spent any time in a mine, you know that being underground is not safe, no matter how much structural stuff. So I worked in uranium mines, and I investigated things in coal mines in West Virginia and Virginia, and near Beckley, and people have no idea what's underground. I went to this one thing. My boss at Cornell, he said, "We're going to take a road trip," and I said, "Oh, where are we going? Because I can't tell you." I said, "Okay." So we get in this car. We're going to drive and drive and drive. We get to this place. We get out of his car. We get into a really nice vehicle, but the windows are black. You can't see out, right? So we go and we go and we go, and we stop and we get out and we're inside the cave, right? And there are a lot of vehicles parked around, and it's like, oh, it's pretty big. It's as big as a football field, and it's like they call it mezzanine. It's a big, high ceiling, right? And we get on this electric train, and we go deep, 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 deep. We get off. We get on the elevator, wee, all the way down, and it puts us out into this big mezzanine that's like the size of a, like the big gigantic Super Bowl place in New Orleans, or any gigantic structure like that. It's that big. It's just gigantic. And there's not just one mezzanine. There's a couple of them, right? And it's like a parking lot. You can drive down that, right? And so pretty much there's nobody there. There's a bunch of vehicles parked over there. We get in this electric kind of golf carty thing. We go over, and at each mezzanine, yes, it's a thing that goes down the next mezzanine, but there are tunnels that go out from those mezzanines, big time. And there's all kinds of big, heavy coal mining equipment, and I've seen that before. So anyway, we're going, and we stop into another mezzanine, and this is all full of guys in white coats and spacesuits and army guys and tanks. It's like and so we are taken down this hallway tunnel, and it's maybe 100 yards we walk, and we are in these environmental suits, not spacesuits. We're totally covered, gloves, tape up here, and we're wearing a helmet that has a little hole to a little filtery thing that has a fan, so it's filtering whatever you're breathing, like down to micron level, right? And there's another little, you snap that thing and you just get oxygen, right? So, and there's, you know, in the helmet, there are lights on the outside and there are lights on the inside. And there's green, yellow, orange, red. And if it gets into the orange, a little switches and you're breathing from the tank. What's on it was on your back. It was like a vest, right? Anyway, so and in the vest are all kinds of cute flashlights and all kinds of interesting stuff. But I don't need any of that. That's not my job. My job is to be observant and to see things that most people don't see. And so we go in there, and there are these different. We get to this place, and they have it all, airlocked in, and you go into that one, and then you go into the next one, and then we come to a place where we're seeing everyone in spacesuits, and on the other side of the glass is this gigantic. It's the size of a bread truck. Everything I've ever seen that's weird is the size of a bread truck. I don't know what it is about that size, but anyway, bread truck, and it's more a square than a rectangle. And it's stainless steel. It is reflective, almost like mylar mirror. And I'm looking at it, and have all these guys and computers and blackboards, and swivelly, not blackboards, but the thing with magic markers, and they've got equations and all kinds of stuff. And anyway, so we go and we go into this room where we can take off our little helmets, and people are talking, and they have all this. They have a nice little computer generated. This is what it is. And what it is, the story goes, is that they were digging a coal seam. And these coal machines are gigantic. They're like a tractor trailer. And they have, tank treads. And they have this wheel with gigantic teeth and water pressure. And they got a 500 horse synchronous induction motor, meaning you can't stop this thing. It's got like, if you were to walk into those blades, and so it's basically just chopping up the coal, turn it into just the right nugget to burn in the furnace, and being taken out by a conveyor belt, right? And so anyway, so it's going through the seam, and it hits something, and the thing it hits is so indestructible. The machine destroys. It just kind of tries to chew into it, and just and so. Then the box is there. It's obvious they had people come in with, hydraulic hammers and, cut all the coal out around the box and leave the box. And they did a big, it's a 20, 30, 40, 50 feet around the box. And, so we can see the box. It's all really lit up like you can't believe. And, the the guys in white coats and the guys in suits and my boss, and I'm just there to observe, right? I'm not even taking notes. I'm just being observant. I'm not documenting anything. I'm just being observant. And so they're going on, and so my boss then, after they give us the 411 of everything, my boss starts asking questions. How long you've been doing this, blah, 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 and what's blah, 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 right? And I'm listening, to everything. And so my boss stops and looks at me and goes, Al, you got anything to ask? And I go, yeah, how much does it weigh? And they go, what? I said, how much does it weigh? We don't know. Well, you got all this other crazy, it's electromagnetic thing, blah, 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 blah. You haven't weighed it? Really? And they were like, no. I said, so what do you got to weigh it with? And they, somebody goes and talks to somebody who talks somebody out, and they come out with this really nice, but this thin scale, right? And it's maybe 3 feet by 3 feet. So all I have to do is get it up and slide it under. And so, and it has these little air like bladders. So you could stick it just under there, and it theoretically could, expand a little bit and lift the thing up and lift it down, and it could roll in, right? That's how it was designed. Very nice design. And so they go out there and, they basically chip out from underneath and stick the thing there and push the button, and it does its little bladdery thing in the air, and it kind of rolls out into where it's right in the center. Then it lets itself down, and then all the data comes in on. So the sucker weighs like, it's the size of a bread truck, gigantic, and they try to cut it, drill it, do everything to it, and it won't budge, right? So basically, the readout comes, it weighs 115 pounds. It's like, whatever in kilograms. And I said, well, that's interesting. And they go, how can that be? And they're like, because they were figuring out the mass and the this and the that. And I said, okay, so the next thing is, so what color temperature is it? And again, they go, huh? I said, well, you got these bright freaking lights. How do you know what that is? Did you do a spectrometer measurement of it? What color light is reflected off it? And they said, no. I said, and so those lights, are they diodes? And this is, in the 80s, and they had diodes, but no one knew what diodes were that like they do now, like every light bulb is a diode. And diodes are really interesting because you can really go nuts with color temperature if you have the right diode lamps, which they did. So they started doing that, and they got a spectrometer out there measuring the reflection. And they were seeing that this thing was very interesting in that it wasn't, made out of anything they knew, but it was more a frequency. Or, what looked like it was, like the drill wouldn't go through, the laser wouldn't do it. It was a frequency, right? So I said, that's interesting. I said, so there's no door, no window, no nothing, but every edge is like unbelievably, it's not rounded, it's just perfectly together. And they said, so what do you mean? I said, to me, that's a seam. Every corner of this thing has a seam on it. When you have a seam on anything, that is the point of entry. They said, what do you mean? They said, well, you have something like, let's say you have a box that's a top, right? And the seam around it, and there's these two little hinges, and right? That's how you get in the box, right along that seam, right? And they still don't get it. I said, what we have to do is be able to move this thing around and put pressure on corners, on the sides. And I would say at a certain point, if we're lucky, we will find the seam quickly and it'll pop open. I said, have you ever seen the Japanese mystery box? And they said, no. Well, we need a Japanese scientist here. It is just that. So they got some expendable guys to go out there and play with it, and I could so do this, do that, do this, do that. Because I wasn't going in that thing. Because the wall between us and them and the glass and you could have detonated a big bomb in there, and it would have wouldn't have gone through any of that. So anyway, I felt safe. I didn't want to go in there. Didn't have any need to. But they had guys who went in there and fooled around with it, and they were moving around, and it was light. They could pick it up, and they could move it around. And before I said, I said, what kind of boxes you got? So they brought in a whole bunch of boxes to put on the desk, and I'm showing them all about looking for a seam and looking for the weakest part, and it should just break open just like that. I said, look at an egg, So we had the nice little discussion with the guys who went in there in the spacesuits, and they did that, and thing popped open, and this brightest, most unbelievable, undescribable light, which wasn't any kind of light. It was photonic light, not incandescent light. And that's a whole different thing. There was no shadows whatsoever. And this shield kind of went up over the glass when the thing popped open. Because it did have a little bit of a explosion kind of thing go on. And so the shield went up, and that photonic light went through that metal shield, which was kind of interesting. Anyway, at that point, we were asked to vacate the premises, right? So we did. And we went out the way we came, and we went to different things, and we went up to this one place where the guy, with white hair and a $2,000 suit was sitting in his office, and this was, probably wasn't like that way, 2 months ago. It's like just a coal mine, but he had the paneling, everything in there. And he sat down, and he knew my boss, and they were talking, and he said, I watched you on the monitor. Kid, you're pretty smart. You asked all the right questions that all those other guys with degrees and white coats didn't even think of. Like, how much does it weigh? What color temperature does it reflect? He said the two most important things, and the realization that each corner had seams rather than being, one piece of metal. I said, yeah. I mean, how else could you get something in there, right? And if it was solid, how could it be that light? And he said, well, you didn't really get to see us go inside it, but by the time we got here, all the sides kind of came, and it was like paper. I said, yeah, and a diamond drill and a laser couldn't cut through it. What does that mean? And he goes, well, what does that mean? I said, well, it's a dimensional cube. You work on that one. And so, they talked some more, and they brought in, some sandwiches and cocktails and coffee cake, and he gave my boss an envelope, and he gave me an envelope. And then we were escorted out and taken back to the car, and that had black windows, and they drove us back. So maybe 3 days went by. And I had no really sense of ever sleeping. And once we got into our car, I pulled the envelope out, and it was like a stack of Benjamins like that. I said, yeah, buddy, this is the kind of job I want. And my boss said, well, you're right on your way. And it was. Right? So he sent me to other places to do other things. Wasn't quite as strange and interesting as that, but other ones were, right? Apparently this is more than 164 low, down, down, down. Yep. We had no idea how far down it went, right? It was one of those things. And time and space, as soon as we got in that car, the windows were blackened out, I had no idea where we went. I mean, it took us, they took everything, we just had the clothes we wore. And as soon as we got there, we had to take them off and put these like overall things on, which were very kind of silky almost. Because when we put the other suit that had the space helmet, it went on over the silky thing. Anyway, but from the time we got in that car to the time we went to that first mezzanine where they took our clothes off and we put the other stuff on, so they took, the cell phones weren't really a thing then. It was 1988, 89. And so, yeah, that was quite an interesting experience. And I've had a number of them. And especially when I was younger. After I got past 50, I would well, I'll just give me the information and I'll think about it. So that was a nice one. They used to take me to Egypt to look at stuff that they took out of Middle Eastern. Iraq has more stuff. We went to Iraq, and that's why what's his name, George H. went into Iraq because they found all these artifacts, and the Germans and the French, who were part of the you know collective that were doing this, weren't sharing. They found some pretty interesting stuff, and then they just kind of, oh well, we're not, we're not doing much. We're just kind of sunbathing, and that went on and on and on, and they weren't allowed to leave, but they weren't sharing anything that they were playing with. So that's why George H. went in with the Fifth Army, because we didn't go in and do anything with. We went straight up to where those artifacts were, and we went into Baghdad. We went into the museum and we took out all of the keys to what that artifact was, and then we left. And just for fun, we used A-10s to wipe out 200 tanks and armored personnel carriers and killed 3,000. Then put a air cap on top of Iraq. And Bill Clinton did that and killed a lot of people, to secure that air, cap and protect the Kurds. So anyway, it was interesting. So I got to see stuff like that. And I'm not an Egyptologist, no, nothing about it. I just would look at it with a clean slate. That's my skill set. I know a lot about a lot of stuff. And I have a clean slate. I can, do you ever have one of those like the Etch-a-Sketches, right? Then they have the really cheap ones, a piece of cardboard with a little plastic film, and you have like a popsicle stick, and you draw on it, and then lift it. That's my brain, right? So the thing is not to have any expectations. Don't believe in anything. Experience faith, right? All the places and all the things I did, I could have gotten. There were guys who went in that mind. There were, people, throwing up and freaking out and being carried out in, thermos bottles and, I had died so many times up to that point. I was in my, let's say 88. So I was 38 years old. And, I'd already died 6 times, 5 times, somewhere in there. Enough to know. And I had been an EMT, so I had been around death a lot. So I kind of, not really scared of death. I'm more interested in to see what happens at the other side because, something happens or dirt nap, either way, no big deal. Right? And that's why you need to, in every day and every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. So you got nothing to worry about. And you can experience and express with love's co-creation every moment you're around. And when you do that, you become extremely aware of everything around you. So you don't lose sight of anything or not, be able to appreciate what you're going through. Because most people don't appreciate shit. They don't get anything out of their life. I've been around, I took care of my parents for 20 years. They died. And we had a lot of fun. Meaning I told them I'm not going to be with you and have fun. So we did have a lot of fun. But I would talk to them about everything. And my mom kind of externalized everything. She was, interested intellectually about that. My father, he loved reading books. Once I got him to read, he couldn't not read. I put something in his hand, he'd read it. So I started, taking him to the library, and he read, the 3 different places he lived in. He read every book in those libraries. Everything, from novels to, science, he read everything. Right? And so he would like to talk about whatever he was reading about at the moment, but he never wanted to kind of internalize the experience of the story or the information. It was just another book he could just, the bottom line, he'd like just, right? And my mom, she was more into like, I wonder what that's about, or that was funny, or that she loved things that were funny. So, but she had gotten to that place that she wanted, but in economic safety and security and all that kind of stuff, and tons of really fancy houses and fancy cars and jewelry, whatever she wanted, she had. My dad would get it for her, right? So that's why she married him, right? And he banged her, big time. They were banging until they were in their 70s, and then they kind of gave up on it. But they really miss the moment, right? And I would, so they lived in these really fancy places like gated communities, blah, blah, that had really, not just a gate, but really fancy, like a clubhouse and a golf course and the tennis courts and I remember, and you could use anything because they charge you to stay there to mow the lawn and all that, pays for all that stuff. And you got $300 worth of food. And my parents weren't people who liked to go out. They didn't really appreciate food. So I would go there for lunch. Lunch was $12, period. No matter, they had this big buffet and big shrimps and lobster tails and every kind of sandwich and a hot thing and salad thing. And because since the minute I went to any of those things was going there, you're not supposed to tip anybody. I tipped everybody. I would go into that place with a pocket of $10 bills, and I would just shake their hand with a $10 bill in my hand, and so these people. So there was this one place in Florida where my parents lived. They're in this clubhouse. It was the big fancy ballroom. There was the bar where people hung out and had meals. And then there was this kind of brunchy room for Sunday brunch. And off of that, there were little dining rooms. And there was this one dining room that was really sweet. It was right looking out at the golf course that looked out into where the marina was, out to where the intercoastal. And right there, this was one of the only places that you could get out into the Atlantic instead of having to go 20 miles in any direction. And so you could see out into the sea, right? And this was above, 20 feet above where the, right? And it was outside. So the thing was inside and outside. And just below you, they had these steps that went down to the putting thing. So it's like pitch and putt, And they had a bunch of balls and a bunch of putters, and you could, so I would eat. I would, do. There was nobody there. I would putt around a little bit, and then do. And there was a guy over there who took care of the driving range and the pitch and putt and a few other things. So I didn't have to go running for the balls. And every time he would, I would show, come down the steps. He would come over, how you doing? And I'd shake his hand, $10 bill. And no one ever, give these people, not even at Christmas would they give them a gift. Right? I would everyone who worked there, I shook their hand because I put my hand out like this with the $10 bill in it and put it in their hand. And it was like a message of appreciation. So, man, they treated me better than anybody else there. I did stuff that, by the bylaws, you can't do that. Bella had puppies, right? And these puppies were super duper great. By the time they were 2 weeks old, they were totally potty trained. And I got these, instead of kind of collars, I got these things that were harnesses, for sled dogs, but you had little ones, and I put them on them, and I could pick each dog up like they were a suitcase, right? And I had a blow-up kiddie pool. So Bella could just step out of it, but, it's that high, so a little puppy couldn't get out. Perfect, right? So I put them on the front lawn, and people would complain, and the security guy would come over and say, oh, these puppies are so cute, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, everyone's complaining. I said, well, are they going on other people's lawn? He goes, no. I mean, I clean up the shit. Is the smell bother? No. Is there any specific law or rule that says that if you have a dog, it can't be on your front lawn? No. I said, so you can just tell them to go fuck off. He goes, yep. And I said, good to see you, Steve. And why Steve liked me so much, he had married this woman who had two boys, and one was 18, and he was not doing well, not doing well in school and hanging out with the wrong people. And like my parents, they would, if they were assholes, I wouldn't be there, right? I go, I'd either have a girlfriend or I have friends who had, and then I had this house in Stewart, and I also worked for this guy in the 90s who did big jobs, but his crew just wasn't up to it. And so I would go and help him, and I would do service work, like, these old 1960s condos that were like 12, 20 stories high, and they built them just the worst. And so their electric systems were already burning out and stuff like that, and the panels were too small, and people added too much. Anyway, so I went around and wired that kind of stuff. And I took Steve's teenage son, stepson, and I said, "Come on, I'm going to teach you to be an electrician. I need a helper." So we did that, and he wanted to be an OG. So he had some friends in Hollywood who were OG, pretend OGs. Anyway, so we would go and see them, and I got all those guys because I had two gigantic buildings, each with like 100 condos in that we had to redo the services, meaning just the panels, meaning everything else kind of worked. We changed out outlets that were burnt out. We put GFIs in, we put switches in, stuff like that. But no, other than that, didn't touch the wire. Nothing was burnt. Everything was fine. The panels were just shit to begin with, and then after 20 years, they were ridiculous. So I figured out how to do it. So because he had his boys do it, his boys took 3 days to do one panel. And once we got going, we were doing 5 panels a day. So when he brought me in and showed me the job, and he said, "Look at this." I said, "What? This sucks. You did a terrible job." He said, "It took them 3 days." I said, "So how much did that cost you?" He said, $1,500. And he said, I said, "So what do you want to pay me to do this in a good way?" And he said, "I can give you, I said, how about 1,000? And he said, well, you got to be quick, I said, you pay us 1,000. You paid me 500, like you wanted to say. We would be doing it half the time. Pay us 1,000. We'll knock 4 to 5 of these out a day. That's impossible. Want to put some money on that?" And he looked at me and said, "No, $1,000 a panel is more than enough." And I said, "So you got all the panels?" And he said, "Yep." And so we went to it. And in less than 4 months, we did 4 buildings. And so we made a lot of money. And I gave those guys, I paid them really good. I paid them cash. And I said, you've got to invest this in like something else, not drugs, not a gun. This is your new career. Let's go. And we went to South Beach. And South Beach was it was still kind of funky. And I said, "Okay, let's go into a bank." We went into a bank. We started a checking account that these guys would share, and we made an LLC, and they bought a building. Right? I think it was $20,000, and I had more than that. We had already made way more than that. And so I said, "Okay, I'll buy this." And they said, "Aren't you going to go to a bank again?" I said, "No." The bank lady said, "But here, let us." I said, No. Unless you can really, how about a CD? Can you get us 20 grand? What will the CD buy us? What interest? And at that point, it was kind of high. And so, the crash of, the Republicans really destroy the economy every time they take over. But anyway, so it was, interest rates were pretty high. So a CD was, we got the CD for, and if you kept that 20 grand in there for, X amount of time, you would get a little something something, and you could take $500. So I said, okay. So we're doing this. Can we get a loan off of your CD and have it automatically pay that? And she said, oh yes, we have that. I said, so instead of paying 11%, how about paying 5%? Oh yes, we can do that. You're a privileged customer. Okay. So I get the boys to get a building in South Beach, and it was an apartment building, and it, I don't know, 5 apartments. And we spent a good deal of time and materials from the other job to fix that place up because it was a mess. And so now they have their own place, right? They had this CV over here that was making them money that they could then borrow off of, and they had an LLC, and it was entertainment, right? What was it called? Something Entertainment LLC. I forgot. Maybe OG Entertainment, something like that. Anyway, so these guys, that was it. They were dead. Then the guy who we were working for, he now had this crew that had an LLC that, right? And then they started doing entertainment stuff. So anyway, and that's the stuff I like to do. I made pretty good money out of that one, and those 5 guys, I guess 5, they did really well, and they bought other. They just kept buying buildings in there and in Hollywood, so they did pretty good. And I kind of lost track of them after I died. Pretty much, I wrote everybody off. I died, and I said, "That's it. If I go back to that kind of life, I'll just get back into it, and then I won't be doing this, right?" So that's kind of, And then when I tell people these stories, they go, "How come you did that? You could be a millionaire." Well, you can. It's much better to live like a millionaire than to be a millionaire, right? Just because you're under, yep, just be in the present. Yep. Apparently, it is more than, yep. So, let's see, what time is it now? Okay. Any questions? And how about some response? Because I'm trying to tell you these things, these stories, and Griot tells a story to evoke an experience from you, the listener. See, the thing about the difference between a storyteller and a griot is that the griot is interacting with the listener more, and the listener is more than a guy buying a drink at a club or something. The listener is more the student that is the teacher, right? So, are you guys getting any of that? Let's see. So, how about this? Because you think, just look at the first day of Donald Trump, right? The first 48 hours. And we haven't, we're just walking on the boardwalk, ready to get into the ride. It's going to be a wild, crazy ride, that's for sure. So, any of you feeling it yet? You know what's going on? You got any idea? Any insights? Any points of view? No? Okay. Well, let us join hand to hand and pray. Breathe in that deep, close your eyes. Uncross your legs, your fingers, or anything, so everything is in clear flow. You're breathing in that prana. That's what the prana is. Love's co-creation's force. Prana is what animates all living things. Prana is what consciousness is that that collective. And you're breathing out the waste products of your body, and you straighten up. So the flow is clear. Energy goes through all your nervous system. You feel the 9 cranial sacral systems flowing that information all through your body. Feel the lifting of your prana throughout every cell of your body, so you're no longer a lower energetic. Feel yourself rise in energy. Your body much better, much clearer. Until tomorrow, I love you all. Sleep well. Have a good day, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Stay well. See you tomorrow. Probably come on in the morning sometime. So if you're in Europe, it'll be probably 1 or 2 in the afternoon. If you're in North America, it'll be somewhere between 10 a.m. and 9 a.m. You stay well, my friends. My cadre, our cadre, not mine, it's our cadre. All our relations, that's who we are.